Businessman disguises himself as a tourist to spy on the chambermaid. But what he overhears leaves him in shock. Harrison Sterling had never suspected anyone so much in his entire life. The guests' expensive belongings were disappearing at an alarming rate, and every clue pointed to the same person. That's why he decided to disguise himself as an ordinary tourist that Saturday morning. He put on a simple floral shirt, pulled on an old cap, and pretended to be just another guest walking through the corridors of the Waldorf Astoria, his property for 15 years. He couldn't shake the suspicion that had been growing over the past few weeks. Sarah Jenkins, the housekeeper on the third floor, always seemed nervous when he walked by. She would look away and quicken her pace. For a man used to reading people in business, those signs were all too clear. He followed her discreetly as she pushed her cleaning cart down the hallway. She stopped at the door of room 312, checked her surroundings with excessive caution, and went in. Harrison positioned himself strategically behind a decorative column where he could watch without being seen. Sarah came out of the room quickly, more tense than before, and continued her work in the next room. Then something happened that he didn't expect. Her phone rang, and she answered with trembling hands. Harrison moved a little closer, trying to overhear the conversation. "Hello, Dr. Harrison." Her voice came out choked. "What do you mean he's gotten worse? He was fine yesterday when I left home." Harrison stopped in his tracks, his heart racing for reasons completely different from what he had imagined. The woman he suspected of being a thief was crying on the phone, her voice heavy with despair. "Please, doctor, tell me there's something we can do," Sarah continued, leaning against the wall. "I work 3 different jobs. I take extra shifts whenever I can, but I still haven't been able to save up all the money for the treatment. Can you give me more time?" Harrison stood still, not knowing what to do. That conversation had nothing to do with stealing guests' belongings. It was about medical treatment, about a desperate mother fighting to save someone. "No, doctor. Please don't transfer him to the waiting list at General County Hospital," she pleaded, tears now streaming freely down her face. "I promise I'll get the money. I just need 2 more weeks. I'll sell everything I have at home. I'll take out a loan, anything." The call ended, and Sarah stayed leaning against the wall for a few minutes, sobbing softly as she tried to pull herself together. Harrison watched everything from a distance, feeling a lump in his throat that he couldn't explain. When she finally dried her face and went back to work, he realized her movements weren't those of someone hiding something illicit. It was pure exhaustion. At that moment, Harrison began to question everything he had assumed about Sarah Jenkins. Maybe her constant rushing wasn't guilt, but necessity. Maybe her nervousness wasn't fear of being caught stealing, but rather the weight of carrying so many responsibilities. He decided to keep watching, but now with different eyes. For the rest of the morning, he discreetly followed her work routine. Sarah cleaned each room with meticulous care, double-checked that all the guests' belongings were in the right place, and handled every object with gentleness. There was nothing in her behavior that suggested dishonesty. When her shift ended, Harrison followed her to the staff exit. She walked quickly along Fifth Avenue, but not in the direction he expected. Instead of going home, she went into another commercial building. Curious, he waited outside until he saw her come out, 2 hours later, wearing a different uniform. Now he understood. She had another job. The afternoon turned into evening as Harrison continued his unofficial investigation. Mariana left her second job at 7 in the evening, and to her surprise didn't go home. She walked to a small restaurant in Greenwich Village and entered through the back door. Another hour passed before she finally emerged, clearly exhausted, removing a kitchen apron. 3 jobs. That woman worked at 3 different places in the same day. Harrison felt like a complete idiot. While he was busy inventing theories about her being a thief, Sarah Jenkins was working herself to the bone to pay for medical treatment for someone she loved. The discovery left him unsettled in a way he couldn't explain. On Sunday, he returned to the hotel earlier than usual, hoping to see Sarah. She worked on weekends, something he had always interpreted as suspicious. Now he understood it was pure necessity. When he saw her arriving for the morning shift, he noticed the deep, dark circles under her eyes, the way she dragged her feet slightly. That woman was at her limit of exhaustion. Harrison spent the whole day thinking about the conversation he had overheard. Who could need treatment? A child? Husband? Elderly mother? His curiosity grew, but he knew he couldn't simply ask. After all, officially, he was just the hotel owner who suspected an employee. On Monday, the situation took an unexpected turn. Mrs. Beatrice, a guest in room 408, came to the front desk, completely distraught. "My diamond bracelet is gone," she announced loudly, making sure everyone heard. "I left it on the vanity yesterday before going out, and when I came back it wasn't there anymore." Harrison felt his stomach sink. The bracelet was worth at least $50,000. And who had cleaned room 408 the day before? Sarah Jenkins. "Are you sure you left it in the room, Mrs. Beatrice?" asked Arthur, the manager. "Didn't you accidentally take it in your purse?" "Young man, I know very well where I leave my jewelry," she replied sharply, "and I demand that you do something about this. This isn't the first time I've heard of things disappearing in this hotel." Other people at the front desk began to murmur, and Harrison realized the situation could spiral out of control quickly. Arthur promised to investigate immediately, but Harrison knew all eyes would turn to Sarah. An hour later, Arthur knocked on his office door. "Mr. Sterling, I need to talk to you about the bracelet situation," the manager said. "The housekeeper who cleaned the room was Sarah Jenkins. This isn't the first time items have gone missing from rooms she cleans." "It isn't the first time?" Harrison feigned surprise, though he knew there had been other incidents. "In the last 2 months we've had 5 similar cases, all in rooms she cleaned," Arthur explained. "I know we can't accuse her without proof, but it's a pretty strange coincidence," Harrison completed. "Exactly. What do you think we should do?" Harrison remained silent for a moment, his chest tight. He knew the right thing to do was to investigate properly, but he also knew Sarah would be the prime suspect. And now that he knew at least part of her story, the situation became much more complicated. "Let's talk to her," he finally decided, "but discreetly. I don't want this to turn into a scandal." Arthur agreed and left to call Sarah. 15 minutes later, she was at the door of Harrison's office, clearly nervous. He gestured for her to sit down, noticing how her hands trembled slightly. "Sarah, did you clean room 408 yesterday?" Arthur asked directly. "Yes, I cleaned it," she replied in a low voice. "Is there a problem?" "The guest reports the disappearance of a valuable bracelet," Harrison explained, watching her reaction carefully. Sarah's face went pale immediately. "The bracelet," she repeated. "I didn't see any bracelet. I cleaned everything properly, like I always do." "She says she left it on the dressing table," Arthur insisted. "I cleaned the dressing table, but there was nothing on it," Sarah replied, her voice firmer now. "If there had been any jewelry, I would have left it the way it was and cleaned around it. That's standard procedure." Harrison believed her. There was something in her tone, the way she held eye contact, that conveyed honesty. But Arthur was clearly not convinced. "Sarah, we don't want to accuse anyone of anything," the manager said, "but you understand our position, right? This isn't the first time something like this has happened." "What do you mean this isn't the first time?" she asked, seeming genuinely confused. "Other guests have reported items missing over the last few months," Arthur explained, "and they were all in rooms you cleaned." Sarah was silent for a moment, processing the information. When she spoke again, her voice was heavy with hurt. "Are you accusing me of stealing?" "No one is accusing you," Harrison interjected quickly. "We're trying to understand what happened." "Mr. Sterling, I've worked here for 4 years, Sarah said, looking directly at him. "I've never even taken a chocolate from the minibar without permission. I've never even looked at guests' belongings with the intention of keeping them for myself. You can check my file, ask other employees. I need this job more than you can imagine." The last sentence came out heavy with emotion, and Harrison felt his heart tighten. He knew exactly why she needed the job so badly. "We'll investigate properly," Harrison promised, "but for now I think it's best you stay away from the rooms where guests keep valuables." "Is this a suspension?" Sarah asked, panic creeping into her voice. "It's a precaution," Arthur said, "until we clear this up." "But I need to work," she insisted. "I have bills to pay, responsibilities." "It's temporary," Harrison assured her, though he wasn't sure if it was true. Sarah left the office visibly shaken. Harrison watched her through the window as she walked slowly across the staff courtyard, Her shoulders hunched as if she were carrying the weight of the world. That afternoon he couldn't concentrate on anything else. The image of Sarah crying on the phone, begging for more time to get money for a treatment, wouldn't leave his mind. Now she was suspended just when she needed the income the most. He decided to do his own investigation. He called the head of security and asked to review the camera footage from the rooms where the other items had gone missing. If Sarah were truly guilty, the footage would show something suspicious. He spent 2 hours analyzing the recordings. In all of them, Sarah appeared to be doing exactly what she had said, cleaning carefully, respecting the guests' belongings, following all the procedures. There was nothing to indicate suspicious behavior. More intrigued than before, Harrison decided to dig deeper. He asked the Human Resources Department for Sarah Jenkins's complete file. What he read there left him even more confused about his initial suspicions. Sarah was 42 years old, had been a widow for 5 years, and was the mother of a 10-year-old boy named Leo. Her husband had lost his life in a workplace accident, and since then she had supported the family on her own. Her professional record was impeccable, always punctual, never missed a day without justification, and received regular praise from guests. Most important of all, he discovered that Leo Jenkins had been born with a rare heart condition and needed constant medical monitoring. Recently, the doctors had recommended corrective surgery that would cost a fortune. It all fit. The phone conversation he had overheard, the 3 jobs, the constant exhaustion. Sarah Jenkins wasn't stealing from anyone. She was working herself to death to save her son's life. But if she wasn't the culprit behind the disappearances, who was? Harrison decided to intensify surveillance, but this time focusing on other employees. Over the following days, he discreetly observed the routine of everyone who had access to the guests' rooms. Other housekeepers, maintenance staff, security guards. It was during this observation that he noticed something strange. Dylan Miller, the teenage son of the manager, Arthur Miller, showed up at the hotel with unusual frequency. The 16-year-old supposedly came only to have lunch with his father, but Harrison began to notice that he roamed the upper floors more than would be normal. On Thursday, he decided to discreetly follow Dylan. The teenager took a master key from his father's office, claiming he was going to get something from the storage room, but instead went up to the 3rd floor. Harrison watched him from a distance as he entered room 315, a room that had been cleared by housekeeping, but didn't yet have a new guest. Dylan stayed only a few minutes inside, but when he left, Harrison noticed that he hid something in his jacket pocket. The businessman waited for the teenager to walk away, and then decided to check the room. Nothing was obviously out of place, but Harrison noticed the vanity drawer was slightly open. He was beginning to suspect that he had found the real culprit behind the disappearances. On Friday, his theory was confirmed in dramatic fashion. Mrs. Florence, a guest in room 612, came down to the front desk upset, reporting that her diamond wedding ring had disappeared. It was a family heirloom with priceless sentimental value. "I'm sure I left it on the edge of the bathroom sink," she explained to Arthur. "I always take it off to put hand cream on before going to bed." Harrison watched Arthur become visibly uncomfortable. It was another case, and everyone would know that the room had been cleaned by one of the substitute housekeepers, since Sarah was still suspended. "We'll check everything very carefully, Mrs. Florence," Arthur promised, but Harrison already knew where to look. That afternoon, after Dylan left the hotel, he decided to discreetly search the teenager's car, which was parked in the basement garage. In the glove compartment, he found a small jewelry box containing Mrs. Beatrice's bracelet, Mrs. Florence's ring, and several other pieces he recognized from descriptions of previous disappearances. The discovery left him in shock. Dylan had been responsible for all the thefts, taking advantage of the access he had to the hotel and his father's trust. Sarah had been wrongly accused, suspended from work when she needed it most, humiliated for something she didn't do. Harrison felt terrible. Not only had he suspected the wrong woman, but he had allowed her to be punished for crimes she didn't commit. More than that, he knew the suspension was directly affecting her ability to pay for her son's treatment. He decided to confront Arthur immediately. He scheduled an urgent meeting and presented all the evidence he had collected. The manager's reaction was one of complete shock and disbelief. "This is impossible," Arthur repeated several times. My son wouldn't do something like this. The evidence is right here, Harrison said, showing the jewelry. They were found in his car. Arthur remained silent for a long time, the reality slowly sinking in. When he finally spoke, his voice was broken. How could I not notice? How did I let an innocent employee become a suspect while my own son— What matters now is fixing the situation, Harrison said. Sarah needs to be reinstated immediately, with a formal apology. And all the wronged guests need to get their jewelry back. And what about Dylan? Harrison sighed. He knew the situation was delicate. Arthur was a good manager and didn't deserve to have his career destroyed by his son's mistakes. Let's talk to him first, he suggested. Understand why he did it. Then we decided the next steps. The conversation with Dylan was even more revealing. The teenager confessed everything when confronted with the evidence, explaining that he had started stealing to support an addiction to online games. He owed large sums to virtual loan sharks and panicked. I knew it was wrong, he cried, but I didn't know what else to do. Every day the debt grew bigger. Harrison felt a mix of anger and pity. Dylan was just a kid who had made terrible decisions, but that didn't lessen the suffering he had caused Sarah. Why didn't you ask your father for help? Harrison asked. Because I knew he would be disappointed in me, Dylan replied. He always talks about how proud he is to work at an honest place, to be respected. I couldn't tell him I was getting involved with that kind of people. The situation was more complex than Harrison had imagined, but one thing was clear. Sarah Jenkins needed to know the truth immediately. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Harrison decided he would go to Sarah's house himself to give her the news in person. He got the address from the Human Resources file and drove to the Brooklyn Heights neighborhood where she lived. Sarah's house was simple, on a steep street overlooking the Hudson River. When she answered the door, she was clearly surprised to see him. Mr. Sterling, she said, worried. Did something happen? May I come in? I need to talk to you about something important. Sarah led him into a small, modestly furnished living room. Harrison immediately noticed the medical bills spread out on a table, all with alarming amounts. In an armchair in the corner, a thin boy of about 10 was reading a book. Leo, go play in your room, Sarah said softly to the boy. That's not necessary, Harrison interrupted. Actually, I'd like to meet him. Leo approached timidly. He was a boy with intelligent eyes, but Harrison could see the paleness that indicated health problems. Do you like to read? Harrison asked, trying to break the ice. I love it, Leo replied with a shy smile. Mum always brings books from the library for me. Harrison felt his heart clench. That family was fighting against immense difficulties, yet they still held on to simple moments of love and learning. Leo, can you go to your room now? Sarah repeated. I need to talk to Mr. Sterling. When they were alone, Harrison took a deep breath before beginning. Sarah, I came here to offer you my most sincere apologies, he said. We found out who was actually stealing at the hotel, and it wasn't you. She was silent for a moment, as if she couldn't process the information. What do you mean? It was Arthur's son. Dylan confessed everything. You were falsely accused, suspended for no reason. I'm so sorry. Tears began to roll down Sarah's face, but this time they were tears of relief. I knew I hadn't done anything, she murmured, but I started doubting myself. When you suspended me, I thought maybe I had done something without realizing it. Never. The security cameras show that you always acted with complete honesty, Harrison assured her. I want you to come back to work on Monday with back pay for all the days you were suspended. Thank you, she said, wiping her eyes. You have no idea how much I needed to hear that. Harrison looked at the medical bills on the table again. Now that he knew her situation, he felt compelled to do more than just reinstate her. Sarah, may I ask about your son? He said gently. She hesitated for a moment, but then began explaining Pedro's heart condition, the need for surgery, the impossible costs of private treatment. The health insurance only covers part of the procedure, she explained, and the waiting list at the General County Hospital is way too long. The doctors say we can't wait that much. How much do you need to raise? $120,000, she answered, her voice breaking. It seems impossible, doesn't it? That's why I work 3 jobs. But even so, Harrison did some quick mental calculations. To him, that amount was relatively small. To Sarah, it represented years of savings she didn't have. What if there were a way to get the money? He asked. What do you mean? The hotel could offer a special loan, interest-free, to be paid back over several years. Sarah looked at him with suspicion. Why would they do that? Because you're an exemplary employee who was wronged, and because every company should take care of the people who work with dedication. I don't know, she hesitated. I don't want charity. It's not charity. It's a loan you'll pay back by working, an investment in a valuable employee. Harrison could see she was torn between pride and desperation. The need of her son was weighing heavier than her reservations about accepting help. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course, but don't take too long. From what I understand, time is important for Leo. When Harrison left Sarah's house, he felt deeply moved by the experience. That brave woman was facing challenges alone that would have broken many people, and he, who had started out suspecting her, now felt genuine admiration for her strength and dignity. On Sunday, he decided to stop by the hospital where Leo was receiving treatment. He wanted to better understand the boy's medical situation so he could help more effectively. He spoke with Dr. Harrison, the cardiologist handling the case. Leo is a special kid, said the doctor. Very intelligent, very brave, but his condition really needs to be treated soon. Every month we spend waiting increases the risks. And the surgery would solve it permanently? In 90% of cases, yes, he could have a completely normal life. Play sports, play around like any child, but the procedure needs to be done by a specialized team, and that comes at a cost. Harrison left the hospital with one certainty. He couldn't let that boy suffer when he had the power to help. On Monday, Sarah returned to work. Harrison watched her discreetly throughout the day and noticed how she seemed relieved, but still worried. Her son's medical problem continued to weigh on her shoulders. On Tuesday, he made a decision. He called Sarah in for a private conversation and presented a concrete proposal. I thought more about our conversation, he said. I want the hotel to cover the full cost of Leo's surgery. No loan, no repayment. It's a way to make up for the injustice you suffered. Sarah was in complete shock. Mr. Sterling, that's a lot of money. I can't accept it. Why not? Because it would be too much. I didn't do anything to deserve this. Yes, you did. You worked honestly for 4 years. You were wronged, and you kept your dignity even in the worst circumstances. If that doesn't deserve recognition, I don't know what does. She started crying again, but this time the tears were gratitude mixed with disbelief. Leo can have the surgery? She asked between sobs. He can have the surgery, Harrison confirmed. I'll call Dr. Harrison today to schedule it. In that moment, something shifted inside Harrison. Seeing pure happiness on that mother's face affected him in a way he had never experienced before. For years, he had focused only on profits and numbers. Now he was discovering that using his money to transform real lives could be infinitely more rewarding. Leo's surgery was scheduled for the following week. During the days of preparation, Harrison found himself constantly thinking about the Jenkins family. He visited the boy at the hospital, brought books and games, and gradually developed a genuine affection for that brave child. Mr. Harrison, Leo said during one of those visits, thank you for helping my mom. She was really worried, and now she's smiling again. The simplicity and sincerity of the gratitude touched Harrison deeply. At that moment, he realized that his life, despite all his financial success, had been quite empty when it came to meaningful human connections. The surgery was a complete success. Leo recovered quickly, and the doctors confirmed that he could have a normal life from then on. Seeing Sarah's joy when she received the news was one of the most rewarding moments of Harrison's life. But the story was far from over. In the following weeks, while Leo recovered, Harrison began spending more time talking with Sarah. At first, their conversations were about work and the boy's recovery. Gradually, they became more personal. He discovered that Sarah was a woman of exceptional intelligence, who had dropped out of college when she became pregnant, but had never lost her love for learning. She, in turn, began to see beyond Harrison's business facade, perceiving a lonely man who had devoted so much time to business that he forgot to build a family of his own. "Can I ask you something?" Sarah said during one of those conversations. "Why did you never get married?" Harrison was surprised by the direct question, but decided to be honest. "I guess I never found anyone who made me want to change my life. I always thought relationships were unnecessary complications." "And do you still think that?" He hesitated before answering. "I'm not so sure anymore." Something was happening between them, a connection that went beyond her gratitude and his generosity. It was an attraction based on mutual respect and genuine affinity. But Harrison knew the situation was complicated. He was her boss. There was a significant difference in social class, and any relationship would be viewed with suspicion by others. Sarah also seemed aware of the complexities. Although she appeared comfortable in his company, she kept a certain respectful distance. The situation changed when Leo was finally discharged from the hospital. Harrison went to visit them at home to celebrate, and for the first time he saw mother and son together in a completely relaxed setting. Leo was playing in the yard, running and laughing in a way he hadn't been able to before the surgery. "Thank you," Sarah said simply, watching her son play. "For what?" "For giving me back my boy. For giving him the chance to be a child." Harrison felt an intense emotion looking at that scene. It wasn't just satisfaction from having helped. It was something deeper, more personal. "Can I confess something?" he said. "Getting to know you two has changed my life too." "What do you mean?" "For years I thought success just meant accumulating money. Now I understand that it means using what you have to make a difference in people's lives." Sarah looked at him with an expression he couldn't fully decipher, but that seemed to carry a mixture of admiration and something more tender. "Would you like to have dinner with us?" she asked impulsively. "Nothing fancy, just some home cooking." Harrison accepted right away. That night, sitting at the Jenkins family's simple table, eating meatloaf and mashed potatoes and talking about books with Leo, he felt more at home than he ever had in any expensive restaurant. After Leo went to sleep, Harrison and Sarah continued talking on the small balcony overlooking the city. The conversation flowed naturally, touching on dreams, fears, life experiences. "Can I ask you something personal?" Harrison said. "Go ahead. Do you still miss your husband?" Sarah was silent for a moment, considering her answer. "I miss him and I always will. But I've learned that missing someone who's gone doesn't mean I can't move forward. Leo needs a mother who lives in the present, not the past." "And you? Have you thought about moving forward?" "Lately, yes," she admitted, looking directly at him. "But it's complicated, you know. Because of the social difference. Among other things, you live in a very different world from mine. You have responsibilities, expectations." Harrison moved a little closer to her on the small bench where they were sitting. "And what if none of that mattered? What if it were just about two people who care about each other?" "But it does matter," she said softly. "It always matters." They sat in silence for a while, the air between them heavy with unspoken possibilities. "I need to go," Harrison finally said. "But can I come back? I mean, not because of Leo or work, because of you." "I'd like that," she replied. That night, Harrison drove home with his heart racing like a teenager's. At 45, he was experiencing something he'd never felt before. He was falling in love. In the following weeks, Harrison began visiting Sarah's house regularly, always with some excuse, bringing a book for Leo, checking on how her recovery was going, discussing work matters. But they both knew the real reasons were something else. Leo loved the visits. Harrison turned out to be unexpectedly good at talking with children, and he soon became a substitute father figure for the boy who had no memories of his biological father. "Mr. Harrison," Leo said during one of those visits, "do you like my mom?" The direct question left Harrison speechless for a moment. "I like her very much," he answered honestly. Your mother is a very special person. She likes you too, Leo revealed innocently. I heard her telling Mrs. Martha, the neighbor. Harrison smiled, feeling his heart beat faster. And what do you think about that? He asked. I think it's good. My mom deserves to have someone take care of her too, right? She's always taken care of everyone. The child's simple wisdom touched him. Leo was right. Sarah deserved to have someone who took care of her. That night, Harrison decided to be more direct about his feelings. He waited for Leo to go to sleep and then asked to talk with Sarah alone. Sarah, I need to tell you something, he began. I'm falling in love with you. She was silent, but Harrison could see the emotion in her eyes. I know it's complicated, he continued. I know people will talk, that there will be judgment, but I can't pretend anymore that it's just friendship. Harrison, she started. Let me finish. I know you might think it's gratitude mistaken for love, or that I'm taking advantage of the situation, but it's none of that. It's something real, something that grew regardless of everything that happened before. Sarah moved closer to him and held his hands. It's not gratitude mistaken for something else, she said softly. I'm falling in love with you too, but I'm scared. Scared of what? That this is temporary for you. That once the novelty wears off, you'll realize we're from worlds too different. I have a son to raise, responsibilities, a simple life. You have an empire to run. Harrison squeezed her hands. Sarah, my life has changed completely since I met you two. Things I used to think were important no longer make sense. What makes sense now is this, being with you and Leo, being part of a real family. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. They kissed there on the small balcony, while the city lights shone in the distance. It was a kiss full of promises and possibilities. But as Sarah had predicted, their relationship soon became a topic of gossip at the hotel. Some employees approved, seeing how Harrison had helped her family. Others were more skeptical, whispering about the boss's true motives. The situation got worse when Arthur Miller, still dealing with the shame of his son, made unpleasant comments about the situation. He's only with her out of guilt, Arthur said to other employees. Soon he'll get tired of her, and she'll be in a worse situation than before. When those comments reached Sarah's ears, she was deeply shaken. She went to Harrison's office, clearly upset. People are saying you're only with me out of pity, she said outright. And do you believe that? He asked. I don't know what to believe. Maybe they're right. Maybe you need some time to think about whether this is really what you want. Sarah? No, Harrison. I think we should take a break. Let the dust settle. She left the office before he could argue. Harrison was left alone, frustrated and hurt by her distrust, but also understanding the pressure she was facing. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. That helps us a lot, as we're just getting started. Now, continuing. The following days were hard for both of them. At work, Sarah kept a strict professional distance. Outside the hotel, Harrison tried a few times to visit her at home, but she always came up with excuses to avoid longer conversations. Leo, who had grown fond of Harrison, didn't understand why he had stopped visiting regularly. Mom, is Mr. Harrison mad at us? The boy asked. No, sweetheart, he's just busy with work. But he said he was going to teach me how to play chess. Sarah's heart ached. She knew she was hurting not only herself, but also her son, who had started to see Harrison as a father figure. Meanwhile, Harrison was going through his own crisis. The absence of Sarah and Leo made him realize how important they had become in his life. The big, empty house that used to be his refuge now felt cold and meaningless. He decided to seek advice from someone he trusted, Mrs. Dorothy, a long-time hotel employee who had known him since he inherited his father's business. Mrs. Dorothy, may I ask your opinion about something personal? He said. Of course, my dear. What's worrying you? It's about Sarah. People are saying I'm only with her out of pity, and she's starting to believe it. Mrs. Dorothy, a woman in her early 60s who had watched Harrison grow up in the business, looked at him with maternal warmth. And what do you feel for her? Love. Real love. She and Leo are the best thing that ever happened to my life. Then why are you here talking to me instead of being there talking to her? Because she asked for some time, she said people are talking. Harrison, Mrs. Dorothy interrupted him, you're 45 years old. Since when do you care what people say? It's different, I don't want to hurt her. And do you think staying away isn't hurting her? That woman truly fell in love with you, but she's afraid because life has hurt her too much. She became a widow young, struggled alone to raise her son, was unfairly accused here at the hotel. It's only natural that she's afraid of opening her heart again and getting hurt. So what should I do? Show her you're not going to give up, that this isn't a whim or pity but true love. Harrison knew Mrs. Dorothy was right, but he didn't know how to convince Sarah. The opportunity came a week later when Leo got sick at school. Sarah was at her second job and couldn't leave immediately. The school called the hospital as the emergency contact, and Dr. Harrison in turn called Ricardo, remembering that he had been involved in the boy's treatment. Harrison rushed to the school and found Leo with a high fever and breathing difficulties, symptoms that could be related to his post-surgical heart condition. "Where's your mother?" Harrison asked, carrying the boy to the car. "She's at work," Leo replied weakly. "I didn't want to bother her." At the hospital, while Leo was being examined, Harrison stayed by his side, holding his hand. The boy was scared, but Harrison's presence comforted him. "Mr. Harrison," Leo murmured, "you stopped coming by our house." "I know, Leo. I'm so sorry." "Is it because you don't like us anymore?" Harrison felt his eyes well up. "No, champ, I like you guys a lot. More than anything in the world." "Then why don't you come over anymore?" "It's complicated, Leo, grown-up stuff." "My mom's sad," Leo revealed. "She cries when she thinks I'm not looking." At that moment, Sarah arrived at the hospital running, clearly desperate. When she saw Harrison next to her son, her expression turned into a mix of relief and confusion. "What happened?" she asked, hugging Leo. "He got sick at school," Harrison explained. "I brought him straight here. Dr. Harrison already examined him. It's just a bad flu, nothing related to his heart." "Thank you," she said simply, but Harrison could see the emotion in her eyes. They spent the rest of the afternoon at the hospital until Leo was completely stable. During that time, they talked normally for the first time in weeks, focused on the boy's well-being. When they were discharged, Harrison offered to drive them home. "You don't have to," Sarah said. "I can call a cab." "Sarah, please, let me take you both." During the drive, Leo fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the fever. In the silence of the car, they finally had the conversation that had been put off for too long. "Thank you for taking care of him," Sarah said softly. "You don't have to thank me. I love that boy." "I know, and he loves you too." "And you?" Harrison asked, parking in front of her house. Sarah was silent for a long moment. "Harrison, I'm scared," she finally admitted. "Scared of what?" "Of falling completely in love and then you realizing it was a mistake. I can't handle having my heart broken again, and Leo can't handle losing someone he loves again." Harrison turned off the car and turned fully toward her. "Sarah, look me in the eyes," he said. "I'm going to repeat what I said before, and I want you to believe it. I love you. Not out of pity, not out of guilt, not on a whim. I love who you are, your strength, your dignity, your intelligence. I love the way you take care of Leo, the way you make me want to be a better person. But people, to hell with people. The only opinion that matters is ours and Leo's. No one else lives our life. What if it doesn't work out? What if we're too different? What if it does work out? What if we're exactly what each other needs?" Sarah watched him for a long moment, as if trying to read his soul. "Are you absolutely sure?" "I am." "And you?" She took a deep breath before answering. "I love you too," she confessed. "I fell for you in a way I didn't think was possible after my husband." "Then why are we wasting time?" She smiled for the first time in weeks. "Because I'm stubborn and scared." "I can handle stubborn and scared," Harrison smiled back, "as long as you're stubborn and scared with me." They kissed there in the car, while Leo slept peacefully in the back seat. It was a kiss that sealed not just their reconciliation, but the true beginning of their relationship. In the months that followed, Harrison and Sarah built their relationship with care and patience. He drastically reduced his business-related social activities, preferring to spend his evenings in the simple house in Brooklyn Heights. Sarah, for her part, gradually opened herself up to exploring his world, occasionally dining at elegant restaurants and meeting Harrison's businessman friends. Leo flourished with the presence of a father figure. Harrison helped him with homework, took him to soccer games and taught him chess as he had promised. The boy began to affectionately call him Uncle Harrison, a title that moved him more than any professional recognition. But not everything was easy. There were moments of friction when their class differences became evident. At a social gathering at the hotel, Sarah felt out of place among the sophisticated wives of the other businessmen. Harrison noticed her discomfort, and they left early. But the incident sparked a difficult conversation. "I don't know if I can be part of your world," she admitted. "I don't know how to talk about the things they talk about. I don't have the right clothes, the right education." "You have something none of them have," Harrison replied. "You have substance. You have character. You have a real story of struggle and victory. That's worth more than any degree or designer clothes. But they won't see it that way. Then they don't deserve your attention." Gradually, Sarah gained confidence. Harrison encouraged her to go back to school, paying for an online business administration course she had always dreamed of taking. She proved to be a brilliant student, absorbing knowledge with the hunger of someone who had been deprived of education for too long. A year after the reconciliation, Harrison made a decision that surprised even himself. He called a meeting with all the hotel employees to make an important announcement. "Some of you know that my personal life changed significantly in the past year," he began. "I learned things about leadership, about social responsibility, about the kind of company I want to run." The employees listened attentively, some curious about where that conversation was going to lead. "That's why I decided to implement some important changes. First, we're creating a healthcare fund for all employees and their families. Second, we're going to offer scholarships for those who want to continue their education. Third, all employees will share in the company's annual profits." The reaction was one of general surprise. Arthur, who had become an ally after resolving the issues with his son, was the first to applaud. "These changes are inspired by someone who taught me that a company is only strong when it takes care of the people who make it work," Harrison continued, looking directly at Sarah, who was at the back of the room. "I hope you see this not as charity, but as recognition for your work." After the meeting, Sarah approached him, emotional. "Why did you do that?" she asked. "Because it was the right thing to do, and because you taught me that having power means having responsibility to the people who depend on you." That night they talked about the future for the first time in concrete terms. Harrison had until then respected her pace, without pressuring her for anything more serious. But now he felt it was time to talk about marriage. "Sarah, can I ask you an important question?" he said. "Of course." "Will you marry me?" She was surprised by the direct question. "Are you proposing to me?" "I am. I want to be your husband. I want to legally adopt Leo. I want us to be a real family." "And you're sure that's what you want? A wife who worked as a chambermaid, a son who isn't yours biologically?" "Sarah," Harrison held her hands, "you and Leo are the best thing that ever happened to me. I want to spend the rest of my life proving that to you both." Tears streamed down her face as she answered, "Yes, of course." They decided to have a simple ceremony, just with close friends and hotel staff. Leo would be the ring bearer, obviously thrilled at the idea of officially having a father. But 2 weeks before the wedding, an unexpected event almost ruined everything. Dylan, Arthur's son, who had been responsible for the thefts, reappeared after months in treatment. He sought out Harrison directly, carrying a guilt he could no longer bear. "Mr. Sterling, I need to speak with you," said the young man, visibly more mature than before. "How are you, Dylan? Your father said you're doing better." "I am, that's why I came here. I want to apologize for the trouble I caused Mrs. Sarah. I know she almost lost her job because of me." "That's in the past, Dylan. What matters is that you learned from your mistake." "But it's not in the past for me. I found out something you need to know." Harrison was intrigued by the young man's seriousness. "What did you find out?" "When I was stealing, once I saw you watching Mrs. Sarah. I thought it was strange at the time, but later I understood. You suspected her, didn't you?" Harrison hesitated before answering. At first, yes. And does she know? No, I never told her. Dylan shook his head. Mr. Sterling, with all due respect, I think she deserves to know. If you're going to marry her, there can't be secrets between you. Harrison knew the young man was right, but he feared Sarah's reaction. How would she feel knowing that in the beginning he had followed her, suspecting she was a criminal? That night, he decided to tell the truth. He took Sarah to dinner at a quiet restaurant and, after dessert, took a deep breath for the hardest confession of his life. Sarah, I need to tell you something about how our story began, he said. What is it? When items started disappearing at the hotel, I suspected you. She stopped stirring her coffee and stared at him. What do you mean, you suspected me? You always seemed nervous when I walked by. You were always in a hurry, working in several places. To me, they seemed like signs of guilt. And what did you do? Harrison swallowed hard. I disguised myself as a tourist and followed you. I wanted to be sure before accusing you. Sarah's face changed completely. Her loving expression turned to shock and then to deep hurt. You spied on me? Yes. But when I heard you crying on the phone with the doctor, I realized I was completely wrong about you. For how long? A few days. Until I found out about Leo, about your other jobs, about your real situation. Sarah stood up from the table abruptly. I need air. Harrison followed her to the sidewalk, where she was clearly trying to control her emotions. Sarah, let me explain. Explain what? She turned to him, her eyes welling up. That you investigated me as if I were a criminal, that our whole story started with you spying on me. That's not how it was. When I found out who you really were. When you found out? Harrison, you followed me, invaded my privacy, drew conclusions about my character based on prejudice. How can I trust you after this? Because everything changed from that day on. Because I fell in love with the incredible woman I discovered you are. But you didn't know me when you decided to spy on me. You just saw a nervous housekeeper and assumed I was a thief. Harrison couldn't deny it. That was exactly what had happened. You're right, he admitted. I made unfair judgments based on prejudices I didn't even know I had. But then you fell in love with me out of pity, she interrupted, out of guilt for having judged me wrong. No, out of admiration, out of true love. How can I know which is which? Sarah called a taxi and left, leaving Harrison alone on the sidewalk. He knew he had ruined everything with his late honesty. In the following days, Sarah avoided all contact. He didn't answer calls, didn't reply to messages, and asked Arthur to handle any work matters. The wedding was postponed indefinitely. Leo, who didn't fully understand what had happened, was confused and sad. Why doesn't Uncle Harrison come here anymore? He asked his mother. It's complicated, sweetheart. Did you two fight? Something like that. But does he still love us? Sarah had to pause before answering because she wasn't sure of the answer. Meanwhile, Harrison was going through the worst days of his life. Losing Sarah and Leo affected him in a way he never imagined possible. He couldn't focus at work. He wasn't sleeping well. He had no desire to do anything. Mrs. Dorothy tried to comfort him. She just needs time to process, said the older housekeeper. It's a lot to take in at once. She has every right to be hurt, Harrison admitted. I should have told her from the start. You should have, but you didn't because you knew it would hurt her. And now you told her because you knew a marriage can't have secrets. Either way, you were trying to protect her. I don't know if she'll see it that way. Give her time, and yourself too. A week later, Leo himself took an initiative that surprised everyone. He snuck out of the house on a Saturday morning and showed up alone at the hotel, looking for Harrison. Leo! Harrison was frantic when he saw the boy. What are you doing here by yourself? Does your mother know where you are? No, I ran away from home, Leo said with a determination that was surprisingly mature. My God, Leo. She must be terrified. Uncle Harrison, I need to talk to you. Harrison immediately called Sarah, who answered when she recognized the hotel's number. Harrison, is Leo there? He is. He ran away from home to talk to me. I'm coming to get him right now. Sarah, he's fine. Let him say what he came to say, then you can come. There was a long pause on the line. "Fine, but don't take long." Harrison hung up and turned to Leo, who was sitting in an armchair in the office with a seriousness that was striking for a 10-year-old. "What did you want to tell me, champ? Uncle Harrison, did you do something really bad to my mom?" The direct question completely disarmed him. "I did. Not on purpose, but I did." "And do you regret it?" "I regret it very much." "And do you still love us? More than anything in the world?" Leo was thoughtful for a moment. "You know, before you showed up in our lives, my mom used to cry a lot," he said. "She thought I didn't see, but I did. She cried because she was afraid I'd get sick, because she didn't have money for the treatment, because she felt alone." Harrison listened in silence, his heart heavy. "After you came along, she stopped crying. She started smiling for real, laughing at your bad jokes, getting happy when you visited. She became herself again." "Leo, and then you two fought, and she started crying again. Not as much as before, but she's crying again. I'm sorry, Leo. I hurt her by accident. Uncle Harrison, everyone does wrong things sometimes. What matters is owning up to it and trying to make it right." The simple wisdom of the child touched Harrison deeply. Leo continued, "My mom taught me that true love is forgiving the people we love when they mess up. And I know she loves you, even if she's mad." "How do you know?" "Because she keeps all the pictures we took together. Because she still wears the necklace you gave her for her birthday. And because when she thinks I'm not looking, she stares at those things and looks sad." When Sarah arrived at the hotel, she found Harrison and Leo talking like old friends. The scene moved her more than she wanted to admit. "Leo Jenkins, you scared me half to death," she said, hugging her son. "Sorry, Mom, but I needed to talk to Uncle Harrison." "And what did you two talk about?" she asked, avoiding looking directly at Harrison. "We talked about love, forgiveness, and second chances," Leo replied with a maturity that surprised both adults. Sarah finally looked at Harrison. There was something different in her expression, less anger and more sadness. "Leo, go over there with Mrs. Dorothy while I talk to Uncle Harrison," she said. When they were alone, the silence was long and heavy. "Sarah," Harrison began. "Let me speak first," she interrupted. "I spent the whole week thinking about what you told me. I was hurt. I felt betrayed. I questioned everything that happened between us. I understand. But I also thought about who you were when you met me and who you became afterward. I thought about how much you changed, how much we changed. And what conclusion did you come to? That maybe the beginning of our story doesn't matter as much as the story we built afterward. You judged me wrong at first, but then you really got to know me and fell in love with who I truly am." Harrison felt a spark of hope. "Does that mean—" "It means I also fell in love with who you became. With the man who saved my son, who changed his entire life for us, who became the father Leo never had." "Sarah, I won't lie. It still hurts knowing you had me watched. But what hurts more is being away from you." They embraced right there in the office, a hug of reconciliation and mutual forgiveness. "Can I ask for something?" said Sarah. "Anything. No more secrets between us. If we have a problem, we talk about it. If you have any doubt about me, you ask me directly. We can't build a family based on mistrust. I promise, total transparency from now on. So, do you still want to marry me, even knowing I'm stubborn, proud, and sometimes hard to deal with? I want to marry you precisely because you're stubborn, proud, and sometimes hard to deal with. Those are some of the things I love most about you." They rescheduled the wedding for 2 months later, enough time to plan a ceremony that reflected who they truly were as a couple. Instead of a lavish party, they opted for an intimate celebration at the hotel itself, with all the staff members and the nearby families who had become friends. Dr. Harrison was a special guest, as was Mrs. Dorothy and everyone who had been part of their journey. Even Dylan showed up, now fully recovered and working as a volunteer in social programs. Leo was the proudest ring bearer in history, carrying the rings with adorable seriousness. During the ceremony, Harrison not only married Sarah but also officially adopted Leo, who chose to change his surname to Leo Jenkins Sterling. "I promise to love, respect, and take care of you for the rest of my life," Harrison said in his vows. "I promise to be the best husband and father I can be, and to never forget that you are the greatest gifts life has ever given me." "I promise to trust you even when it's hard," Sarah replied. "I promise to build with you a family based on love, respect, and total honesty." When they were declared husband and wife, the applause from the hotel staff echoed through the room. It was a celebration not just of their love, but of a journey of growth, forgiveness, and mutual transformation. The honeymoon was a simple trip to the Hamptons, where they spent a week exploring the countryside, away from the pressures of work. Leo came along because Harrison insisted he didn't want to be away from his son, even on a honeymoon. "Isn't it weird to bring your son on your honeymoon?" Sarah asked, laughing. "For me, family means the three of us," Harrison replied. "I don't want to experience special moments without him." When they returned from the trip, they found the hotel running perfectly under Arthur's supervision, who had become an even better manager after overcoming his personal issues with his son. But Harrison had bigger plans than simply running a hotel. Inspired by his experience with the Jenkins family, he decided to expand the company's social assistance program. "What do you think about us starting a foundation?" he asked Sarah one night. "What kind of foundation?" "To help families with sick children. A lot of people go through what you went through. They can't afford expensive treatments. They wait in line at the public system. They watch their children suffer." "That would be incredible," Sarah replied, her eyes lighting up. "But it's going to be a lot of work. Not if I have you as my partner. You've lived through this situation firsthand. You know the real difficulties." "Partner? Why not? You finished your business degree at the top of your class. You have life experience that money can't buy. You'd be the perfect person to coordinate a foundation." The idea began to take root and take shape over the following months. Harrison sold some properties to fund the project, and Sarah devoted herself fully to structuring the foundation. The Jenkins Sterling Family Center opened a year after the wedding in a renovated building in Brooklyn Heights. It offered not only free medical assistance, but also psychological support for families, income-generating programs, and educational support for the children. Leo, now 11 years old and completely healthy, became something of a mascot for the center. He helped welcome other children, shared his story of overcoming the odds, and showed that it was possible to beat the challenges. Uncle Harrison, a 7-year-old girl, said during one of the visits to the center, "Leo said you saved his life." "No, sweetheart," Harrison replied. "He's the one who saved mine." 2 years later, when the center was already serving hundreds of families, Sarah discovered she was pregnant. The news came on a Saturday morning, when she woke up feeling nauseous for the 3rd time that week. "Harrison," she called from the bathroom, "you need to come here." He found her holding a positive pregnancy test, an expression of surprise mixed with joy on her face. "We're going to have a baby," she said simply. Harrison was speechless for a moment. Then he picked her up and spun her around the room. "Leo!" he shouted. "Come here. We have news." When they told Leo he was going to be a big brother, the boy's reaction was pure happiness. "Is it going to be a boy or a girl?" he asked immediately. "We don't know yet," said Sarah, "but no matter what it is, they're going to be lucky to have you as their big brother." The pregnancy went smoothly. Sarah continued working at the foundation until her 8th month, when she finally agreed to slow down. Harrison became even more protective and affectionate, if that was possible. "You're getting excessive," Sarah laughed when he wouldn't let her carry even a light bag. "I'm being careful," he defended himself. "That's my wife and my child in there, or daughter. Either way, they're far too precious to take risks." Emily Rose was born on a spring morning, healthy and perfect. Harrison cried when he held her for the first time, moved in a way he never imagined possible. "She's beautiful," Leo said, watching his newborn baby sister. "She looks like you, Mom." "But she has your father's eyes," Sarah observed, and Harrison felt his heart swell even more hearing Leo refer to him as Dad. The following months were about adjusting to the new routine. Harrison discovered he loved being a father to a baby, waking up in the middle of the night for bottles, changing diapers, spending hours watching Emily Rose sleep. Leo proved to be an exemplary big brother, always willing to help and protect his little sister. "Our family is complete," Sarah said one night, watching Harrison cradle Emily Rose in his arms while Leo read a book on the couch. "I don't know if it's complete," Harrison replied with a smile. "Maybe in a few years, another one will come along." "Harrison Sterling," she laughed. "You're getting ambitious." "I'm getting happy," he corrected. "Happy in a way I didn't know was possible." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. 5 years had passed since Emily Rose was born. Leo, now 16, had become a responsible and studious young man, interested in pursuing medicine to work with children with heart conditions. Emily Rose, at 5 years old, was a bright and affectionate little girl who loved spending time at the foundation watching her parents work. The Jenkins Sterling family had become a reference in the community, not only for the social work they did, but for the example of love and unity they represented. One Saturday morning, while having breakfast on the porch of the new house they had built, a bigger house but still in Brooklyn Heights to keep their roots, Leo made an important announcement. "Dad, Mom, I've decided I really want to study medicine," he said. "Are you sure?" asked Sarah. "It's a long, difficult program." "I'm sure. I want to help other children the way you helped me. I want to work at the foundation when I graduate." Harrison felt immense pride in his son. Leo had grown up seeing firsthand the positive impact you can have on people's lives, and now he wanted to follow the same path. "If that's what you want, we'll support you in everything," said Harrison. "But remember, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. You already make us proud every day." "I know, Dad, but I want to do this for myself too. I want to make a difference in people's lives." Emily Rose, who had been listening to the conversation while playing with her dolls, looked up and said, "When I grow up, I want to work at the foundation with you too." "And what do you want to do there?" asked Sarah. "I want to take care of the children who are sad, just like you took care of Leo when he was sick." The girl's natural simplicity and kindness touched her parents deeply. That afternoon, Harrison and Sarah walked through the foundation, watching the constant flow of families being helped, children playing in the waiting room, volunteers dedicating their free time to lend a hand. "Sometimes I stop to think about how it all began," said Sarah. "You spying on me because you thought I was a thief." "Don't remind me," Harrison laughed, embarrassed. "One of the biggest embarrassments of my life. But you know what's interesting? If you hadn't done that, maybe we never would have truly gotten to know each other. You would have stayed just the distant boss, and I would have stayed just another employee." "You're right. Sometimes mistakes lead to the greatest successes of our lives. And sometimes the people we least expect are exactly what we need." They stopped at a window overlooking the room where Emily Rose was playing with other children, all of them beneficiaries of the foundation. The scene summed up everything they had built together: a united family, a shared purpose, and a legacy of love that extended far beyond themselves. "Do you regret anything?" asked Sarah. "I regret taking so long to get to know you," Harrison answered, "of having wasted 45 years of my life thinking happiness was just about accumulating money. And I regret being afraid to trust you at first, of almost losing the best thing that ever happened to me because of pride. But in the end, everything worked out. It worked out more than right. It turned out perfect." That night, after the children had gone to sleep, Harrison and Sarah stayed on the porch watching the city lights. It was their ritual, those moments of quiet conversation at the end of the day. "Sarah, can I ask you a question?" said Harrison. "You always can." "If you could go back in time and change something in our story, would you?" She thought for a moment before answering. "I wouldn't change a thing, not even you spying on me in the beginning, because it was all part of the path that brought us here, even knowing how much you suffered, how unfairly you were treated. Even so, the suffering made me appreciate happiness more when it finally came. The injustice made me recognize the value of being treated with respect and love. Everything had a purpose. You're amazing, you know that? I'm lucky. Very lucky to have found a man who wasn't afraid to completely change his life for love. And I'm lucky to have found a woman who taught me the true meaning of the word wealth. They fell into a contemplative silence, absorbing the peace of that moment. From the children's room came the soft sound of Emily Rose breathing, and from Leo's window came a dim light. He was probably reading before bed. "Harrison," Sarah said softly. Thank you." "For what?" "For giving Leo the chance to grow up, for giving me a complete family, for showing me that sometimes fairy tales can be real." "Sarah," Harrison held her hand. "No, thank you." "For what?" "For saving me from an empty life, for teaching me that true love exists, for making me the man I always wanted to be but didn't know how." The next morning, Sunday, the whole family went to Mass at the little neighborhood church, a tradition they had adopted after getting married. Not for purely religious reasons, but because they enjoyed the sense of community, of being part of something bigger. After Mass, as they always did, they went to lunch at Mrs. Dorothy's house, who had become an adoptive grandmother to the children. The retired housekeeper's simple home filled with joy whenever the Jenkins Sterling family showed up. "Mrs. Dorothy," Emily Rose said, sitting on the woman's lap, "tell the story again of how Daddy and Mommy met." "Again, my dear?" The woman laughed. "Don't you ever get tired of that story?" "Never. It's my favorite story." Mrs. Dorothy looked at Harrison and Sarah, who smiled encouragingly. "All right then. Once upon a time there was a very rich businessman, but a very lonely one," she began, "and a very brave mother who struggled all alone to take care of her sick little boy." Emily Rose snuggled deeper into the woman's lap, ready to hear once more the romanticized version of her parents' story. The businessman thought he knew everything about people just by looking at them, but he knew nothing about true love, about family, about what really matters in life. "And Mommy?" Emily Rose asked. "Mommy knew a lot about love. She knew so much that she managed to teach Daddy, even when he was being foolish." Harrison and Sarah exchanged amused glances. Mrs. Dorothy always adapted the story into a version more suitable for the children, omitting the more complex parts. "And then," Emily Rose insisted, even though she knew the ending, "then they fell in love, had you and Leo, and founded a special place where they help other families, and they lived happily ever after." "Like in fairy tales?" "Better than fairy tales, my dear, because this story is real." Emily Rose fell asleep on the way home, tired from the active morning. Leo drove. He had recently gotten his license and took any opportunity to practice. Harrison and Sarah sat in the back seat, watching their daughter sleep. "She's right, you know," Sarah murmured. "About what?" "This story is better than any fairy tale. Because it's real, because it's ours." When they got home, Harrison carried Emily Rose to her room. Sarah helped Leo with a school project, and gradually the house settled down for the night. Before going to sleep, Harrison walked into Leo's room for their daily chat, another ritual they had kept ever since he became his father. "How was your day, son?" "Good. I was thinking about something today, Dad." "What was it?" "Remember when I was little and I was afraid you would leave, when you and Mom fought over that whole thing?" "I remember. I didn't understand back then what had happened. I just knew you guys were sad, and that made me sad too. It was a difficult time for all of us. But today, listening to Mrs. Dorothy tell the story, I understood something. Sometimes people do wrong things, not because they're bad, but because they're confused or scared." The maturity of his reflection impressed Harrison. "You're right, Leo. And why are you thinking about this?" "Because I want you to know that it doesn't matter what mistakes you made in the past. What matters is the father you became, and you're the best father I could have had." Harrison felt his eyes well up. At 16, his son had developed an emotional wisdom that many adults never achieve. "Thank you, Leo. That means more to me than you can imagine." "And Dad?" "Yes? I love you too. A lot." Harrison left his son's room with his heart overflowing with gratitude. He found Sarah in their room, brushing her hair in front of the mirror. "Leo said something beautiful to me just now," he told her, repeating the conversation. He really is special, Sarah smiled. Sometimes I forget he's still a teenager. He talks like an adult. I think he went through things that matured him early. The illness, our temporary separation, having to grow up watching adult problems. But he didn't lose his innocence or his kindness. That's what matters most. Harrison hugged his wife from behind, watching the two of them in the mirror's reflection. Sarah, can I tell you something I've never told you? Of course. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night just to make sure this isn't all a dream. That you're here, that we're a family, that we built all of this together. And is it real? It's real, and it's better than any dream I could have imagined. 3 years passed in relative peace. Leo had started medical school, Emily Rose was 8 years old and excelling in school, and the foundation continued to grow and positively impact the community. On a Tuesday morning, while Harrison was reviewing foundation reports, he received an unexpected call. Harrison Sterling? Yes, who's speaking? This is Dr. Martinez from City Medical Center. I have an interesting proposal to make. The conversation that followed once again changed the course of the Jenkins-Sterling family. The hospital wanted to establish a partnership with the foundation to create the region's first specialized pediatric heart institute. It would be the biggest project we've ever taken on, Harrison explained to Sarah that night, but also the one that could help the most children. What would the implications be? We'd need to expand drastically, hire specialized doctors, expand the facilities, increase the budget fivefold. And do you want to do it? I do, but only if you want to as well. It would be a lot of work, a lot of stress, a lot of responsibility. Sarah was thoughtful for a few minutes. You know what the difference is between us and other wealthy people who do charity? She said finally. What? We know what it's like to need that help. I know the desperation of not being able to afford treatment for your child. You learned what it means to love a sick child. That gives us a motivation that goes beyond good intentions. So your answer is yes? My answer is yes, let's save as many children as we can. The Pediatric Heart Institute project became the greatest undertaking of both their lives. For 2 years they worked tirelessly to make the construction, the funding, and the hiring of the medical team a reality. Leo, already in his 3rd year of medical school, threw himself enthusiastically into the project. Emily Rose, at 10 years old, helped however she could, organizing donated toys and talking with other children in situations similar to what her brother had gone through. Sometimes I feel like we're neglecting our personal lives because of work, Sarah commented one night when they arrived home exhausted. Do you regret it? No. But sometimes I miss the simpler times when it was just the 3 of us having dinner at the kitchen table. We can do that tonight, suggested Harrison. Emily Rose, how about we 3 have dinner together tonight, like in the old days? But isn't Leo coming? Asked the girl. Leo has an exam tomorrow. He's studying. Tonight is just for the original family. They had dinner together at the kitchen table, talking about everyday things, remembering funny stories from the past. Emily Rose laughed a lot at the stories from when she was a baby and was fascinated to learn that her parents had met at work. Daddy, did you like Mommy the first time you saw her? Asked Emily Rose. Harrison and Sarah exchanged a knowing look. Not exactly, said Harrison. It took me a while to realize how special your mother is. Why? Because sometimes the best things in life come in ways we don't expect. Like when you adopted me. Exactly. I didn't know I wanted to be a father until I met you and Leo. And now you know? Now I know that being your father is the best thing that ever happened to me. Emily Rose smiled contentedly and kept eating, as if that conversation had confirmed something important in her childlike mind. Later, after Emily Rose had gone to bed, Harrison and Sarah stayed in the kitchen finishing up. She's growing up so fast, observed Sarah. She is. Before we know it, she'll be a teenager, then off to college. Are you scared? Scared of what? Of them growing up and not needing us anymore. Harrison stopped putting away the dishes and looked at his wife. Sarah, do you think that when they grow up they'll stop loving us? No, but they'll have their own lives, their own families. But they'll always be our children. And we'll always be a family. You're right. Sometimes I forget that family isn't just about being physically together, it's about the love we build. Exactly. And the love we've built with them is solid enough to last a lifetime. The Pediatric Heart Institute was inaugurated 2 years later at an emotional ceremony attended by all the families who had been helped by the foundation over the years. Leo, now in his final year of medical school, gave a speech representing the young people of the community. "This institute represents more than quality medicine," he said before the audience. "It represents hope. It represents proof that when people truly dedicate themselves to making a difference, miracles can happen." Emily Rose, at 12 years old, cut the symbolic ribbon at the opening ceremony alongside her parents. She was a confident and articulate girl, clearly proud of her family's work. "Dad," she said after the ceremony, "how many children are we going to be able to help here?" "Hundreds, sweetheart, maybe thousands over the years." "Is that a lot?" "It's a lot. But each one of those children is unique and special, just like you and Leo are to us." That night, at the celebration party, Harrison watched his family spread across the room. Leo chatting animatedly with the doctors about clinical cases, Emily Rose organizing a game with the other children, Sarah coordinating the details of the party with the natural efficiency she had developed over the years. Mrs. Dorothy, now 70 years old, approached him. "Proud of your family?" asked the lady. "Very proud and very grateful. Do you remember when you came to ask my advice about Sarah? You said you were afraid she would leave." "I remember perfectly. I told you that if it were true love, it would work out. And it did, didn't it? It worked out more than right. It worked out perfectly. Do you know what your secret is?" "What?" "You grew up together. You didn't try to change each other. Each one helped the other become the best version of themselves." Harrison watched Sarah laugh at something Emily Rose had said. Mrs. Dorothy was right. They hadn't tried to transform themselves to fit into each other's world. They had created a world of their own, where both could be authentic. "Mrs. Dorothy, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you think our story could have been different? If I hadn't suspected Sarah that day, it could have been, but it wouldn't have been better. You two needed to go through everything you went through to become who you are today. The suspicion, the discovery of the truth, the apology, the reconciliation. It was all part of the process of you two truly getting to know each other." "So, you don't think I made a terrible mistake by spying on her? I think you made a human mistake, and you were humble enough to recognize it and make it right. That shows character, not the lack of it." The party ended late, but Harrison didn't feel tired. He was energized by the sense of accomplishment, by the joy of seeing so many families benefiting from the project they had built. At home, after everyone had gone to sleep, he and Sarah stayed on the balcony watching the city lights. "Remember the first time we were here talking?" Sarah asked. "I remember. You were afraid to trust me. And you were discovering that there was something more important than money. Today I'm thinking about something different." "What?" "I'm thinking that our story is far from over. We still have many years ahead of us, many projects to accomplish, many people to help, and many memories to create with our children." "Exactly. Emily Rose will grow up, choose a career, get married, maybe give us grandchildren. Leo will graduate, work with us, build his own family. And we're going to be here to witness it all. Together. Always together." They stayed in silence for a few minutes, absorbing the tranquility of the moment and the magnitude of what they had built together. "Sarah," Harrison said softly. "Yes? If you could choose to live any life, anywhere, with anyone, would you choose this same life?" "This same life, with these same people, in this same place," she answered without hesitating. "And you?" "I wouldn't change a single thing, not even the mistakes I made because they brought me here. Not even the suffering I went through. Not even the suffering you went through, because it made our happiness even more precious." The next morning, Sunday, the whole family went to visit Leo at college. He was eager to show his parents the lab where he conducted research on pediatric cardiology. "Dad, Mum, I want to show you something," he said, leading them to a microscope. "This is a sample of heart tissue we're studying. With the research we're doing here, maybe in the future, kids like me won't even need to go through surgery." Harrison watched his son explain technical details with passion and knowledge, and felt a wave of pride that almost overwhelmed him. "Leo," he said when they finished the visit, "I want you to know something. No matter what happens in your career, you've already made me the proudest man in the world." "Why, Dad?" "Because you turned everything you went through, the illness, the suffering, our struggle to get treatment, into motivation to help other people. That's wisdom, son. That's greatness." Leo hugged his father, moved. "I learned that from you two. You taught me that when life gives us hardships, we can choose between becoming bitter or using those experiences to make a difference in the world." Emily Rose, who had been listening to the conversation, approached her brother. "Leo, when I grow up, I want to work with you guys at the foundation too." "And what do you want to do there?" he asked. "I want to be a child psychologist, to talk to the kids who are scared, like I would be if I were in their shoes." Sarah and Harrison exchanged a look of admiration. At 12 years old, Emily Rose had already found her purpose, inspired by her family's example. On the way back home, Emily Rose fell asleep in the back seat. Leo took the opportunity to ask a question he had been holding on to. "Dad, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Do you ever want to have biological kids with Mom?" The question caught Harrison off guard. "Why are you asking that?" "Because sometimes I hear people comment that you only have Emily Rose for real, as if I weren't a real son either." Harrison felt an immediate anger toward whoever had made that kind of comment. "Leo, look at me," he said, pulling the car over in a safe spot. "You are my son. For real, completely, totally. The fact that you weren't born from my blood doesn't make the slightest difference. You are just as much my son as Emily Rose is." "I know you love me, Dad." "It's not just love. It's more than that. When I officially adopted you, it wasn't just a piece of paper I signed. It was a commitment I made with my heart. You are my son, I am your father, and that will never change." Sarah, who had stayed quiet during the conversation, turned to Leo. "Honey, I want you to understand something. Your father chose to be your father. He didn't have you by accident, out of obligation, or by biology. He consciously decided that he wanted you as his son. That's even more special than blood ties." "Besides," added Harrison, "you taught me how to be a father even before Emily Rose was born. You gave me the chance to learn how to love unconditionally. I'm grateful for that every day." Leo was visibly moved by the conversation. "Thank you for choosing me as your son," he said simply. "Thank you for choosing us as your parents." They both replied almost in unison. That night, after the kids were asleep, Harrison and Sarah talked about what had happened. "I'm sad he had to hear comments like that," said Sarah. "Me too. But I'm glad he felt comfortable enough to ask. It means he trusts us. And it was good for him to hear from us how we feel. Sometimes we forget that kids need to have these things confirmed verbally. Harrison, can I confess something to you? You always can. Sometimes I forget that Leo isn't my biological son. To me, he's completely my son, on the same level as Emily Rose. And that's how it should be. Family is about love and choice, not genetics." Exactly. The years went by with the typical speed of happy families. Leo graduated from medical school with a specialization in pediatric cardiology and immediately joined the team at the family's medical center. Emily Rose grew up excelling in her studies and confirming her calling for child psychology. When Emily Rose turned 18, the family organized a special party at the medical center. It was a celebration not only of her birthday, but also of 15 years of Harrison and Sarah's relationship and 10 years of the Pediatric Heart Institute. "Dad, can I make a toast?" asked Emily Rose during the party. "Of course, sweetheart." Emily Rose picked up a glass of juice and positioned herself where everyone could hear her. "I want to make a toast to my parents," she began. "Not just because they gave me an incredible life, but because they taught me that true success in life is measured by the people we manage to help and the love we manage to spread." The audience, made up of family, friends, and center staff, applauded emotionally. "My brother Leo saved my childhood by being the best older brother anyone could have. My parents saved hundreds of families through the work they do, and all of you," she pointed to those present, "saved our family by being part of our journey. So my toast is to all the people who choose to make a difference in the lives of others, even when it's hard, even when no one is watching, even when there's no recognition." She raised her glass, and everyone followed suit. "To the family we choose, to the loves that transform our lives, and to the dreams that come true when we have the courage to fight for them." The toast was met with enthusiastic applause and more than a few teary eyes. Later, when the party was winding down and only the family remained, they sat in a circle in the center's main consultation room. "Emily Rose, your speech was beautiful," said Sarah. "I spoke from the heart, Mom. Everything I said is true." "And now?" asked Leo. "What are your plans for college?" "I'm going to study psychology right here, so I can keep living at home and helping at the center. Then I want to specialize in pediatric hospital psychology." "Are you sure you don't want to see other places?" asked Harrison. "Travel, have other experiences?" "Dad, you and Mom gave me the best life possible here. Why would I want anything else?" "Because you're young. It's natural to want to explore the world." "I explore the world every day here at the center. I get to know families of all kinds. I hear stories of overcoming. I see miracles happen. What place could be richer in human experiences than this one?" Harrison smiled, recognizing in his daughter the same passion for social work that he and Sarah had developed. "Besides," continued Emily Rose, "you taught me that home isn't a geographical place. It's where the people we love are and where we can do our best work." "And your best work is here?" asked Sarah. "For now, yes. Maybe that will change in the future. But today I know that this is where I can contribute the most." Leo got up and hugged his sister. "I'm glad you're staying. There's still so much work for us to do together." "And what about you two, Dad and Mom?" asked Emily Rose. "What are your plans for the next phase of life?" Harrison and Sarah looked at each other. They had talked about this recently, but they hadn't told the children yet. "Actually, we have some news," said Harrison. "We received a proposal to expand our foundation model to other cities in the state." "Really?" Leo got excited. "That's incredible." "It would be a huge project," explained Sarah. "It would mean traveling a lot, spending long stretches of time in other cities, helping to set up new centers." "And do you want to do it?" asked Emily Rose. "We do, but only if you're comfortable running this center by yourselves." "Of course we are," said Leo immediately. "That's what we studied for. That's what we prepared for." "Besides," added Emily Rose, "it would be a way for you to multiply everything you've learned here." "So you support the idea?" asked Harrison. "We completely support it," they both answered in unison. That night, back home, Harrison and Sarah talked about the strange feeling of seeing their children so independent and mature. "Sometimes I can't believe that sick little boy I met turned into the competent doctor that Leo is today," said Harrison. "And sometimes I can't believe our baby Emily Rose is already a grown woman with such clear plans for the future. Do you think we did a good job as parents?" "I think we did our best. And the result is right there. 2 young adults who are good people, who want to make a difference in the world, who love each other and love us. So we can be proud of ourselves?" "We can. Very much so." Harrison got up and walked to the window, looking out at the night city. "Sarah, can I tell you what I'm thinking?" "You always can." "I'm thinking our story is entering a new phase. The phase of grandchildren who may come, of projects we can still accomplish, of places where we can still make a difference. And are you excited about this new phase?" "I am, because we're going to live it together, the way we've always lived everything. And because we know we've left a solid legacy here, with our children." "Exactly. Leo and Emily Rose are going to continue our mission in their own way, with their own ideas and energy. And we're going to start a new adventure, but with the confidence of those who have already built something solid and lasting." They were silent for a few minutes, absorbing the magnitude of the transition they were living through. "Harrison," said Sarah finally. "Yes?" "Thank you for this life, for everything we've built together, for everything we're still going to build. Sarah, you transformed my life in a way words can't express. I'm the one who should be thanking you. Then let's thank each other, one another, the circumstances that brought us together, the people who helped us along the way, to life, which gave us a second chance at happiness, to life, which taught us that true love exists, even when you least expect it. 6 months later, Harrison and Sarah embarked on their new journey of expanding the foundation model to other cities. They left Leo and Emily Rose in charge of the Brooklyn Heights Center, but they visited regularly and kept in daily contact. The first city chosen for the project was Philadelphia, where a partnership with the local university would allow them not only to create a new medical center, but also to develop research in the field of pediatric cardiology. "It feels strange to be away from home," said Sarah on the first night in Philadelphia. "I feel it too. But is it a good strange or a bad strange?" "A good strange. It's like we're starting a new adventure, but with all the experience and confidence we've gained over the years. And with the certainty that we have a solid foundation waiting for us back home." The Philadelphia project turned out to be even more challenging than the original one in New York. Beyond the medical and administrative issues, they had to navigate local politics, earn the trust of the medical community, and adapt their model to regional specifics. But after a year of intense work, the Pediatric Heart Institute of Philadelphia opened with great success. The ceremony was attended by Leo and Emily Rose, who traveled especially for the event. "Dad, Mom, you two are incredible," said Leo during the celebration. "Back home, we're already planning to implement some of the innovations you developed here. And I can't wait to start my work there," added Emily Rose, who had just graduated in psychology. "I want to apply everything I learned in college to the care model you created." Over the following months, Harrison and Sarah split their time between Philadelphia and New York, overseeing both centers and planning the expansion to a third city. It was during one of those trips back to New York that they received news that would change their lives once again. "Dad, Mom, I need to tell you something," said Leo during a family dinner. "What is it?" asked Sarah, immediately curious. "Claire and I are seriously dating, and she agreed to marry me." Claire was one of the nurses at the center, a competent and caring young woman who had joined the team 2 years earlier. Harrison and Sarah had already noticed the closeness between her and Leo, but they didn't know the relationship had progressed so far. "What wonderful news!" exclaimed Sarah, getting up to hug her son and future daughter-in-law. "When are you thinking of getting married?" asked Harrison. "At the end of the year," answered Leo. "We want a simple ceremony right here at the center like you two had." "And do you support it?" asked Claire timidly. "I know I'm going to become part of this incredible family, and I want to make sure I'm welcome." "Claire," said Harrison, "you've been part of this family for a long time now. We see how you care for the children at the center, how you dedicate your life to helping others. You're exactly the kind of person we want by Leo's side." Emily Rose, who had been quiet during the announcement, finally spoke up. "Claire, can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "Do you love my brother the way he deserves to be loved?" The direct question surprised everyone, but Claire answered without hesitation, "I do, and I promise to take care of his heart the way he takes care of his patients' hearts, with total dedication, care, and responsibility." "Then you have my approval," smiled Emily Rose, hugging her soon-to-be sister-in-law. Leo and Claire's wedding was set for December, and the months of preparation were filled with joy and anticipation. It would be the family's first big celebration since the opening of the Philadelphia Center. "It's amazing how life comes full circle," Sarah commented to Harrison one evening. "Remember when Leo was that sick little boy who needed emergency surgery? I remember perfectly, and now he's marrying a wonderful woman and building his own family, and continuing our work at the center. The cycle is complete, isn't it? We helped him grow up healthy. He became a doctor, met someone special through the work we do, and now he's going to start a new family dedicated to the same values. And we'll probably be grandparents soon." Harrison stopped what he was doing and looked at Sarah. "Grandparents? I hadn't thought about that yet." "How not? Leo and Claire are young, healthy, in love. It's only natural they'll want to have children." "Yeah, we're going to be grandparents," he repeated, as if testing how the word sounded. "I like that idea." "Me too. Just imagine, A new generation growing up at the center, learning from a young age about solidarity and love for others. Leo's wedding was a beautiful and emotional celebration. Held in the garden of the medical center, with simple but elegant decor, it was attended by all the families who had been helped over the years. Leo chose Harrison to be his best man, in a ceremony that moved everyone present. "Leo," said Harrison during his speech, "when I met you, you were a brave child fighting a serious illness. Today, you're a man of integrity, a skilled doctor, an exemplary son. Seeing you start your own family is one of the greatest joys of my life." "Claire," he continued, "welcome officially to the Jenkins-Sterling family. You're not just gaining a husband, but parents, a sister, adoptive grandparents, and an entire community that already loves you." Emily Rose was Claire's maid of honor, and her speech was equally touching. "Leo, you're the best older brother anyone could have. You taught me to be brave when I was scared, to study when I was lazy, to dream big when I doubted myself. Claire, you're marrying an incredible man. Take good care of his heart. Claire, you're more than a sister-in-law to me. You're the sister I chose to have. Thank you for making my brother so happy." The celebration stretched into the night with music, dancing, and many shared stories. Harrison watched Emily Rose dancing with some young men from the community and commented to Sarah, "Our daughter is all grown up. Soon it'll be her turn to get married. Do you think she already has someone in mind?" "I don't know, but I do know that when she chooses someone, it'll be someone special. Emily Rose has good taste and high standards." "Just like her mother," Sarah teased. "Definitely just like her mother," Harrison agreed, kissing his wife. 2 years after Leo's wedding, the family received the news they had been waiting for. Claire was pregnant. Everyone's reaction was pure joy. Pedro could barely contain his excitement. Claire was glowing with happiness. Emily Rose immediately started planning how she would be the most devoted aunt in the world, and Harrison and Sarah were emotionally preparing themselves for the experience of becoming grandparents. "Boy or girl?" Emily Rose asked as soon as she heard the news. "We don't know yet," Claire replied. "But Leo wants a girl. And you?" "I just want the baby to be healthy. After everything Leo went through as a child, my only concern is the baby's health." "It's going to be fine," Sarah assured her. "You have the best doctors in the country taking care of you." During the pregnancy, the whole family got involved in the preparations. Harrison and Sarah temporarily returned from the Philadelphia project to be present for the important moments. Emily Rose organized a baby shower at the medical center, and even Mrs. Dorothy, now nearly 80 years old, actively took part in the preparations. "Mrs. Dorothy," Harrison said during one of his visits to the elderly woman, "you're going to meet your first great-grandchild." "Great-grandchild," she laughed. "You're all my adopted children, so this baby is going to be my grandchild, not great-grandchild." "You're right. And what role will Grandma Dorothy play in this child's life?" "I'm going to teach all the family stories, just like I did with Emily Rose. I'll tell her how Grandpa and Grandma met, how brave her daddy was since he was little, how special this whole family is. Sophia Sterling Jenkins was born on a sunny March morning, perfectly healthy and surrounded by more love than a small child could possibly process." Harrison held his granddaughter for the first time with tears in his eyes. "She's perfect," he murmured to Sarah. "She looks just like Leo did as a baby," she observed. "But she has Claire's eyes." Leo, still in awe of being a father, watched his family falling in love with his daughter. "Dad," he said to Harrison, "thank you." "For what?" "For giving me the chance to live long enough to get here. If it weren't for you, I never would have known love, never would have become a doctor, never would have had a family of my own. Leo, you got here through your own strength and determination. I just helped along the way. But you did help. And now Sophia is going to grow up in a family that knows the value of life, that understands the importance of taking care of one another." Emily Rose, at 24 years old, turned out to be an extraordinary aunt. She spent hours playing with Sophia, telling her stories, singing lullabies. "Emily," Sarah said one day, "you're so good with babies. Don't you ever think about having your own?" "I do, but I haven't found the right person yet. And I'm in no rush. I want to enjoy being an aunt first, dedicate myself to the work at the center, build my career. And dating. No special guy. There's a classmate from college, Christopher, who's interesting. He also studied psychology and is thinking about specializing in family therapy. We have a lot in common. And we're getting to know each other slowly. No rush, no pressure. If it's meant to work out, it will happen naturally. Harrison, who had overheard the conversation, was pleased with his daughter's maturity. Emily Rose had learned to value solid relationships based on real compatibility, not just attraction. The following months were all about adjusting to the new family dynamic. Sophia brought a new energy to the medical center, where she often stayed with her grandparents while her parents worked. The pediatric patients adored having the baby around, and many times Sophia served as inspiration for families going through difficult times. "Look at this little princess," one mother said one day, watching Sophia in Sarah's arms. "Was her daddy also a patient here when he was a child?" "He was," Sarah replied, "and today he's one of the most dedicated doctors we know." "Then there's hope for my son too." There's always hope, especially when you have a family that fights alongside you. On Sophia's first birthday, the family organized a party that was more of a celebration of life and the continuation of the family mission. 3 generations were gathered: Harrison and Sarah, the founders of the mission, Leo, Emily Rose, and Claire, the ones carrying it forward, and Sophia, representing the future. During the party, Emily Rose announced her own news. "Everyone, I want to officially introduce Christopher," she said, bringing a friendly young man to the center of the circle. "We've been dating for 6 months, and he wants to be part of our work here at the center." Christopher turned out to be a serious and committed young man, a psychologist specializing in family therapy, who saw in the center's work an opportunity to apply his knowledge to help people on a broader scale. "Mr. and Mrs. Jenkins Sterling," he said formally, "I want you to know that I deeply admire the work you've developed, and that my interest in Emily Rose grew even more when I understood the incredible family she's a part of." "Christopher," Harrison replied, "what matters to us is that you make our daughter happy and share the values that are important to us: family, solidarity, and dedication to helping others. I share them completely. In fact, that's what drew me to Emily Rose in the first place. The way she talks about family, about the work you do, about the responsibility she feels to continue this legacy." "Then you're welcome," Sarah said, embracing her future son-in-law. 2 years later, Emily Rose and Christopher got married in an even simpler ceremony than Leo's, just close family and intimate friends, in the garden of the house in Brooklyn Heights. Sophia, now 3 years old, was the most adorable flower girl in history, scattering rose petals along her aunt's path with adult-like seriousness. "Emily Rose was always the more practical one of us two," Leo joked during his speech. "When I got married, we had a big party. She preferred an intimate celebration and directed the money she saved toward expanding the center's family therapy program." "That's just how she is," Claire added, "always thinking about how she can help more people." Emily Rose and Christopher moved into a small house next to the medical center, making daily work easier. Christopher fully integrated into the team, developing an innovative psychological support program for families undergoing treatment. 6 months after the wedding, Emily Rose discovered she was pregnant with twins. "Twins!" Sarah exclaimed when she heard the news. "What double joy!" "Boys, girls, or one of each?" Harrison asked. "One of each," Emily Rose answered, radiant. "A boy and a girl." "Sophia will have 2 cousins to play with," Leo observed. "She'll love it." The twins, Lucas and Helena, were born healthy and brought even more life to the family. Harrison and Sarah, now in their late 50s, took turns being devoted grandparents and continuing the work of expanding the medical centers. 3 grandchildren, Harrison said one afternoon, watching Sophia play with the twin babies. "Who would have thought I'd make it this far? And all of them growing up in an environment of love and dedication to others," Sarah added. "Do you think they'll continue our work when they grow up?" "We don't know. But we know they'll grow up with the right values. What they do with that will be their choice. And it's okay if they choose different paths. It's okay." What matters is that they're good people, that they make a difference in the world in whatever way they choose. 5 years passed quickly. The expansion project had created medical centers in 6 different cities, all operating with excellence and serving thousands of families. Leo had become one of the most respected pediatric cardiologists in the state. Emily Rose had developed a nationally recognized family therapy program, and Christopher had become director of social programs for the network of centers. Sophia, at 8 years old, Lucas and Florence at 5, spent a lot of time at the medical centers and already naturally showed the compassion and interest in helping other children that characterized the family. "Grandpa Harrison," Sophia said one Sunday, "why do some children get sick and others don't?" It was a deep question for an 8-year-old, and Harrison paused to think about the appropriate answer. "We don't know why some things happen, Sophia. But we know that when someone gets sick, the people who love that person come together to help. Just like you did with Daddy." "Exactly. And just like we do every day at the center with other children. When I grow up, will I also help sick children?" "You can help in whatever way you want. You could be a doctor like your daddy, a psychologist like your aunt, or find your own way to make a difference. I think I want to be a teacher, to teach children to be kind to one another." Harrison smiled, recognizing in his granddaughter the same precocious wisdom that Leo had shown. "Being a teacher is a wonderful way to help other people," he said, "and you're going to be an incredible teacher." Lucas and Florence, still young, were also already showing signs of the personalities taking shape. Lucas was more introverted and liked to observe how things worked at the medical center. Florence was more outgoing and loved talking with the child patients. "It's amazing how each grandchild is developing their own personality," observed Sarah, "but all with the same kind heart." "It's because they grow up seeing examples of kindness every day," replied Harrison. "They think helping others is normal, because it's what they see the family doing." On a December afternoon, while the whole family was gathered to celebrate Sophia's birthday, Leo made an important announcement. "Everyone, Claire and I have some news," he said, smiling mysteriously. "Don't tell me we're having another grandchild?" joked Sarah. "No, it's not that," laughed Leo. "It's about the medical center. We received a proposal to create a medical exchange program with international hospitals." "What do you mean?" asked Emily Rose. "Foreign doctors would come do internships here to learn our methods, and our doctors could pursue specializations abroad." "That's incredible," exclaimed Christopher. "You could take your model to other countries." "Exactly. And doctors from other places could bring new techniques here." Harrison and Sarah looked at each other, recognizing yet another opportunity to expand the impact of the work they had started so many years before. "What do you think?" asked Leo. "We think it's a natural evolution of what we've built," replied Harrison, "and you're prepared to lead this kind of project." "Us?" said Emily Rose. "And you?" "We're thinking about partially retiring," revealed Sarah. "Not stopping completely, but slowing down. Spending more time with the grandchildren, traveling a bit, enjoying life." "You deserve it," said Claire. "You've worked tirelessly for decades. And you've left a solid structure that can work without you," added Christopher. "It will never work without us," corrected Harrison. "We'll always be part of it. We'll just have a less active role in the day-to-day." That night, after everyone had gone home, Harrison and Sarah were alone on the balcony, watching the city lights as they had done so many years before. "Are you ready for this new phase?" asked Sarah. "I am. And you?" "Me too. I feel the time has come to fully trust what we've built and the people we've prepared to carry it on." "Did it turn out the way you imagined? Our life, our family, our work. It turned out much better than I could ever have imagined," she replied. "When I was a single mother fighting to save my sick son, I never dreamed I'd get this far. And when I was a lonely, distrustful businessman, I never imagined I would find such a perfect family." "We're not perfect," Sarah smiled. "We're real. And maybe that's what makes us special. We're real, we're human, we make mistakes, we learn from them, and we keep growing together. And now we have grandchildren to love and spoil, and time to travel, see new places, create new memories, and the peace of mind of knowing we left a solid legacy in the world. They sat in silence for a few minutes, each lost in their own thoughts about the extraordinary journey they had traveled together. "Sarah," Harrison said finally. "Yes?" "If you could choose to live any life, would you choose this same one again?" "Every moment, every challenge, every joy," she answered without hesitation, "including that first day when you spied on me thinking I was a criminal." "Including that day," he agreed, laughing, "because that was the day our story began. And what an incredible story we wrote together. A story that isn't over yet, and it will live on through our children and grandchildren. Forever. Forever." The next morning they woke up to Sophia, Lucas, and Helena running through the garden, their laughter filling the house with joy. Leah was making breakfast, Emily Rose was organizing the toys, Claire and Christopher were talking about the medical exchange program. It was an ordinary family scene, but for Harrison and Sarah it represented the culmination of everything they had dreamed of and worked so hard to build. "Good morning, Grandpa." "Good morning, Grandma," the children shouted in unison. "Good morning, my loves," they answered, embracing their grandchildren. "Are you staying here today?" Sophia asked. "We are," said Harrison. "And how about we spend the whole day playing with you?" "Really?" The girls' eyes lit up. "No work?" "No work, just family." "We'd love that," the three children shouted, running off to tell their parents. Harrison and Sarah looked at each other and smiled. They had worked hard for decades to get here. Now it was time to enjoy the fruits of all that work, a united, prosperous, and happy family dedicated to making a difference in the world. Life had given them a second chance at happiness, and they had seized every moment of it. The end. And you? What did you think of this story of love and overcoming? Tell us in the comments whether you believe that sometimes our worst judgments can lead us to our greatest blessings. Also share where you're following us from and whether you've ever experienced a love that transformed your life. We would be delighted to read your honest opinion about this moving journey we just shared together.